So from key workers in the public sector, let's go to key workers in the private sector. I'm really delighted to introduce our next speaker, who's Sarah Wooley, the General Secretary of the BFAWU, the Bakers Union. People who have seen the inspirational work that BFAWU have been doing around max strikes and supporting young workers. But behind all of that work as well, I know that Sarah and her team have been keeping members safe throughout the pandemic. People who had to go into work, whether they worked in a bakery or a food factory or a processing plant, people who literally made sure that there was food on our shelves. So absolutely delighted to introduce Sarah. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Paul, and thank you to the TUC for the invitation to join. And I'm just hoping that my internet holds out, because it's been very unstable for the last hour or so, which is typical when I'm that. I want to start off by thanking each and every one of our reps for the work that they've done throughout, fighting for recognition for being the key workers themselves and our members are, and of course keeping our members safe. Unions cannot win for workers without our reps on the ground doing what they do best. And I was thinking about what to say today. The title of the event is Every Worker Needs a Union, and being in the position that I'm now in the Bakers Union, of course I'm going to think and believe that trade unions are a vital part of our society. It would be a little odd if I didn't. But I began thinking about comparisons of my introduction into the working world as a 16-year-old in comparison to the introduction into the working world my son's looking at. And I think, if I'm honest, I went a little grayer at the thought. It's a scary world of work for 16 and 17-year-olds to be in, especially one with a general secretary for a mum. And I wanted to, if I can, Paul, touch on a little on the comparisons between working in a unionised workplace and working in a non-unionised, going as far as an anti-trade union workplace, and the importance of the collective. Because I know we're going to hear a lot about the different actions that's going on throughout the movement from others. I started work as a Saturday assistant at Baker's Oven that later became Greggs. The union has had a recognition agreement with Greggs for decades, which has built over time, built in protections such as no 0 hours contracts, the lowest rate of pay being well above minimum wage, only under 18s receiving a slightly lower hourly rate, but still far above the minimum for that age group, premium pay on bank holidays if still worked, generous breaks, rigorous risk assessments, and more recently the removal of the training rate, meaning that from day one you're on a full hourly rate of pay for the job that you're doing. The company and the union have regular meetings at varying levels, from local joint consultation meetings to national health and safety meetings. Reps had spoken to about changes and asked for advice on what may work in the workplace. For example, it was our retail reps that raised through the pandemic that members were struggling to make ends meet. And that led to the grab bag initiative that Greggs put in place, where employees on a closing shift in the shop are able to get a pasty, a sandwich and a cake for £1, which is far cheaper than the discount that they would normally get. They come to us as a union at these different levels to talk about how a change may be received. And in general, though no organisation is perfect, like others, there are a few local rogue managers that don't understand why trade unions exist. But as a result of these regular conversations, Greggs isn't, in the grand scheme of things, a bad organisation to work for. If you compare this to a company like McDonald's, which has 0 hours contracts, pay differentials that reflect the government ones, meaning if you're under 25, you would earn less than your colleague aged 26 doing the same job. And if you're under 18, even more so. A culture, it seems, certainly from our experience, of bullying and harassment and a lack of health and safety standards, leaving many employees able to identify others who work at McDonald's just from the burns on their arms, and a reluctance to speak union as far as organised in the stores. They are a world apart. In fact, there's a myth of stores of a picture of our national president's face in them with a do not engage sign underneath after the strikes that we've had in the past. The difference between these two companies is that one recognises the worth of trade unions, the training that we provide reps, the knowledge, the experience that we have of the industry, the ability to talk to members and face feedback, criticism and ideas, and is generally a safer. There is evidence that unions, which begs the question about. And that's kind of a long-term comparison of two very similar organisations that have a very different view of trade unions. Whilst that shows recognised trade union, what's I keep coming back to is that a trade union is nothing with members and is strong when those members are active and act collectively. That's what makes trade unions important.